As it was 20 years ago under a cloudless sky, as it is every year, America remembering.
3-2-2. Backwards. Skull and Bones.
The current president and two of his predecessors and their first ladies at Ground Zero, where the Twin Towers once stood. At the moment the first plane struck, silence. And the reflections of those whose family members died that day.
As we carry these 20 years forward, I find sustenance in a continuing appreciation for all of those who rose to be more than ordinary people, and a father's pride in his daughter's selfless acts in the last moments of her life.
And then the names, read by those who'd loved and lost, each one its own very personal story.
Gordon M. Amos Jr.
That's what I need to ask. That's what I need to ask him.
Rose Abad. Dad, we miss
That's what
you
I need to
every
ask
day.
him. I feel like he did that.
Our greatest gifts
He
are your
did do
beautiful
that, so I need
grandchildren.
to ask him what he did.
They embody your kind spirit,
Yeah, maybe it doesn't go up,
warm
so
heart, loving nature,
hopefully
and
that's not
zest
the
for
case.
life. Continue to watch over
Hopefully
us
that's not the case.
and your family. 20 years feels like an eternity, but yet it still feels like yesterday.
Might have been my
Until
car.
we
I had
meet
a
again, my love,
trouble
rest
with that
in
window
peace.
before, so I had trouble with that window before, so hopefully it's not the case. But
They remembered too at the Pentagon, that landmark to America's military might, itself targeted that day.
Mary Jane Booth.
And a reminder that 9/11 was a declaration of war that America's
Satanic.
forces have been fighting ever since.
It is our responsibility to remember, and it is our duty to defend democracy. We cannot know what the next 20 years will bring. We cannot know what new dangers they will carry. We cannot foresee what Churchill once called the originality of malice. But we do know that America will always lead.
And the bells rang at Shanksville in Pennsylvania too, where the fourth plane was brought down by the heroism of its passengers.
Wanda Anita Green. My dad, Donald Freeman Green.
The man whose presidency was defined by that day, reflecting on the country's response.
There was shock at the audacity of evil. And
you're
gratitude
evil,
for the
you
heroism
fucking
and decency
skull
that
and
opposed it.
bonesman,
In the sacrifice of the
Jesuit,
first
puppet,
responders,
parasite,
in the
pedophile,
mutual aid of strangers,
satanic filth.
in the solidarity of grief and grace, the actions of an enemy revealed the spirit of a people. And we were proud of our wounded nation.
The man who took on that legacy added his tribute. His
The
decision to
spirit of
mean
the
this is the first
Antichrist
9/11
is in
anniversary
use,
with
eh?
no American troops in Afghanistan.
John Philip Napolitano.
Whatever the debate about that, today was about remembrance.
Ivan Lucia Bonama.
Only this week, the remains of two more victims of the 9/11 attacks were finally formally identified. More than 1,000 remain unidentified. 20 years on, so many are still living with the pain
False.
of what happened here.
That's
Greg
why you
Milam,
have no
Sky News,
views.
New York.
Well, it's been 20 years since terrorists hijacked some commercial airliners and crashed them into things, and what a 20 years it's been. I was 20 years old at the time of 9/11, living in Boston. I woke up every morning to Howard
False.
Stern, and
Yeah, I would be angry too. I am angry.
And welcome back to the Thunder Rooster Podcast. My name's Ron. My name's Paul. Today we have a subject that is going to be kind of hard to tackle, but at the same time, kind of easy. So we are going to talk about 9/11 this week, and it's more or less, I think the title of this episode is going to be the 9/11 conspiracy cover-up, essentially.
That's fair enough to say. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk a little bit about 9/11. It's not going to be your traditional 9/11 episode, as it were, other podcast, but we're going to talk about what happened that day, but more or less what's going on now about it. And put on your foil hats.
Well, let's just start with the idea that the research and the material is not to be found anymore, Ron.
Yeah. I know if you go to places like YouTube, you will not find like your average person doing any kind of video.
This guy a Q-tard?
All these major media places like
maybe
Vice,
not. Maybe he knows
Meta,
Q is a psyop.
they
I
were state
don't
brand probably.
think
One
he
way or shape or
does.
form.
Can't really tell.
And then you have CNN, all the news outlets, National Geographic, everything like that. It's not like it was back in the day where you type a conspiracy in and get all kinds of different sides and views of it.
20 years ago, you could search anything that you wanted.
Yeah.
And I still look back at an old YouTube channel that I have myself to see, hey, some of these 9/11 videos, let me see them. They were all gone. They were all gone. And I kept asking myself, well, why would they be all gone?
Woo!
Woo! Woo! You want to start that one over? Stand by. We all started on fire. Fire! That would have been great. Woo. You doing all right?
We're good.
We're good?
Yeah.
So as I was saying,
Almost fell over.
almost all over, but you're
For those who
you're
are
good.
listening.
You're good, buddy. But I had another channel years ago where I, save videos and things, and I had a ton of videos on 9/11.
Yeah.
And I went back through and tried to find some of those ones that I had. They were gone. And even when I tried to search them, it was even harder to find. The one thing we're going to talk about is one of the clips I could not find, and I had to go really digging for it.
Yeah, and you're not going to find it on Google. That's
No,
for sure.
forget it. No, not at all.
So, a lot of the problem is, all these major internet companies, they're all in the pocket of the government one way or another.
Now they are.
It's been that way for a while.
Well, now it's just, blatantly obvious.
All your data and stuff that gets monitored and filtered by the government or whoever. That started with Facebook, like in the 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s. Yeah.
Right?
So the stuff's been going on, and now it's one of those things. It's like everybody uses Google, everybody uses YouTube, everybody uses Facebook. I know.
They're the biggest social platforms.
But yeah, you go and look like we do have a Facebook page for the Thunder Rooster.
Right.
I don't run it. I don't look at it. We just have it connected to our Instagram. So anytime we post
because
on there,
Instagram and Facebook are part of the same umbrella.
Exactly. I don't like the fact of having a Facebook, but in order to do something like this, you have to have somewhat of a Facebook presence. And I don't like it. I don't.
Some places don't, and they use it for their business. I mean,
but there's so many things, like, you know, people use LinkedIn, they use Foursquare used to be a big one. I don't see much of that anymore. But you have to have something on these social media platforms. You have to have a Twitter. We don't have a Twitter, by the way.
Tweet.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Roosters don't tweet, do they?
Oh.
Okay.
All kinds of engineers. I may be wrong. I thought it was 6.5 million. It may be 1.5 or 2.5 million. But if it's 2.5 million, it's like, then the 3,000 architects and engineers are 1/100th of 1% of all the architects and engineers. So, same thing still applies. How can aluminum planks cut through steel like buildings like butter with no resistance? They don't. It's a question of inertia creates force. So when you have 400,000 pounds traveling at 500 miles an hour, give or take 400 or 500 miles an hour, it's just a question of inertia. And one being, we're not talking water balloons versus concrete walls. We're talking, a baseball versus a plexiglass door instead of a glass door, plastic door. If you fire it out of a cannon, it's going to go through the plastic door, even though the plastic is a lot harder than the glass. Something like that. I don't know. That was probably a terrible analogy, but anyway. I'm grateful your brother got out that day too. Okay. Your mom let you stay home from school because I was going to go to the Puyallup Fair. The first plane hit right after I woke up, and I will never forget that feeling. 800. Oh, I could do it. I could do TWA 800 sometime. Well, it was supposed to be at a higher altitude. It got directed down. They put them into a firing range of a military exercise that was going on. There's radar tapes of an object that performs exactly like a missile called the Standard Missile, which is a ship-fired anti-aircraft missile, which was firing at a target. There's a picture from a wedding of the target behind the lady's head on Long Island, like at the time of the explosion. And the thing was supposed to hit the target, and it found the airplane and hit the airplane instead. And it was 1996 in the middle of a presidential campaign, and Bill Clinton didn't want to be embarrassed, so they squashed the entire thing. And by the way, Pierre Salinger, who released the radar tape, the guy who gave him the radar tape was then prosecuted for giving him the radar tape. The government argued that the radar tape was a fake. But you know what they charged him with? Distribution of stealing government property. So how could the radar tape be government property if the radar tape was fake? So lots of other reasons. And the fact that the plane, as it's flying along, do I have anything that looks like a plane? As it's flying along, if when the missile hits it, the CIA video had the explosion happening, which they said was internal, which is a complete lie. And then the plane goes up like this and then comes down, and they had to do that because of the debris field. What the truth is that if a missile or a bomb went off in the middle of the airplane and split the airplane in half, the heaviest part of the airplane is the tail, the wing box, and the tail, the empennage. So the engines are cut off instantly. There's no more forward thrust, and the tail's going to go like that, and the plane is going to drop like a rock, which is what really happened.
Tell me what you need to tell me. This is for Panther 1, correct? They're camping over Boston. Okay, what? Any track of interest that's heading towards the major city, you will ID. You cannot divert them away from the major city. You are to confirm with...
I haven't seen any evidence of that. Yeah, launch a full Coke can at 500 miles per hour and see what happens to the wall or anything else. Or do this. Go look up some specials on the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. Because what you have is a piece of soft foam that broke off the center fuel tank and hit a Kevlar reinforced leading edge of the space shuttle wing. That wing is infinitely stronger than a piece of foam. But when they did the experiments of the relative velocity, the foam went right through the wing. So if a piece of styrofoam basically can go through a Kevlar reinforced wing, an aluminum airplane at 400,000 pounds and 500 miles an hour can go into a steel frame building. So, all right, guys, thank you very much for being here. That's going to be it. There's other questions that are still out there that I would be glad to answer on Monday if anybody thinks of any other ones. It's just really a shame that there's so much disinformation amongst our community. I mean, basically, there are people in the conspiracy community who won't talk to me anymore, Jordan Sather. I'm not going to mention any names, Jordan Sather, because I speak the truth on 9/11. But the thing is that you have to understand, it can still be a conspiracy without there being, bombs in the Pentagon or bombs in the Twin Towers. And the thing of it is that if you let yourself get distracted on all this nonsense about bombs and controlled demolitions and laser beams and sparklers bringing the towers down, then you're not focusing on the real conspiracy, which is the deep state that plotted this to put us on a war footing and start a war in the Middle East, which is still going on today. We're still suffering the consequences.